My
Yeah,
name
good
is Hwan Hong
afternoon.
Chu. I'm the head of APAC for Volocopter. I have the honor of presenting to you Volocopter today at the International AAM Technical Meeting in Korea. What you see in front is a real picture of our Volocity air taxi with real passengers on the side there. Welcome to the future. Let me give a brief introduction of Volocopter. So we are a German-based UAM manufacturer and operator. Our mission is to make sustainable urban air mobility for everyone come true. On the right here, you see our 2X aircraft flying over the heart of Singapore in the Marina Bay in October of 2019. This marked our entry into the Asia Pacific market. I'll quickly go over the technology that's behind our eVTOL vision. We have 5 products that you see on this page here that I will briefly go over and then more in detail on the following slides. On the top, we have the Volocity and the VoloConnect, are 2 air taxis designed to serve the urban use case and the regional use case. In the lower middle, we have the VoloDrone, which is built on the Volocity design, which allows for heavy cargo logistics of up to 200 kilograms to be used in a urban or in mountain settings. On the lower left, we also have the VoloPort, and on the lower right, we have the VoloIQ. These 2 make up the physical and the digital infrastructure that's necessary to complete our UAM ecosystem. Let me go into the details of each. The Volocity is our flagship product, the one that you saw on the front page. This is the urban air taxi. As you can see from its design, it is a multi-copter design with 18 motors and rotors at the top. It is fully electric, and it has the capacity to carry up to 2 passengers when flying autonomously. We planned to begin operations with a pilot on board with just 1 passenger in the very beginning. Now, the key about the 18 propeller design is that it allows us to achieve the highest safety in aviation, 10 to the minus 9. This means that the aircraft will have less than 1 catastrophic failure in 1 billion flight hours. This is the same standard that commercial jetliners that carry 300, 400 people are certified to. We will have a flight range of about 35 kilometers, which is more than enough to carry passengers between densely packed urban environments at a cruise speed of up to 90 kilometers per hour. On the next slide, we have the VoloDrone, which, as briefly mentioned, is our heavy lift drone that is based on the design of the Volocity. Here you see the VoloDrone flying publicly for the very first time in Hamburg as part of ITS World Congress in October of 2021. It has a lifting capacity of, again, up to 200 kilograms, fully electric, the same 18 propeller design, up to 40 kilometer range, and most importantly, we also anticipate to certify the aircraft up to a 10 to the minus 9 standards, which we believe is necessary in order for the aircraft to fly over heavily populated areas like cities. Moving on to a bit in the future, we have the VoloConnect, which we also announced last year with a miniature flying prototype. The VoloConnect will be extending the reach of our aircrafts up to 100 kilometers and increasing the capacity that we can sit on board up to 4 seats when flying autonomously. It is still fully electric. It has a lift and cruise design, which allows us to operate the 6 motors to lift the aircraft during the takeoff and landing phase, but then the twin propulsive fans will move the aircraft forward in the cruise phase. This allows us to fly at a much faster speed, up to 180 kilometers per hour, and most importantly, at the same time, still being able to achieve the 10 to the minus 9 safety level that we believe our aircraft needs to operate safely. Now, I'll quickly go over the digital background, right, the backbone, the Volo IQ. On the next slide here, you will see, right, what the Volo IQ covers. We really envision it to be the operating system for the UAM industry, the software part of it, right? This is what's going to allow for a scalable support system for efficient UAM operations. On the right, you see the first screenshots, right, of Volo IQ to be used internally to allow us to live monitor our aircrafts while they're in flight, right, for safety and efficiency purposes. On the left, you see the different portions that Volo IQ covers. We cover, of course, the whole aspects of the customer journey. So this is the app that you will use when you book a ride on our air taxi. But it will also cover air and ground operations, flight analytics. It will help us manage our batteries, maintain logistics, right, and also help with in-flight connectivity. We really see the Volo IQ as the software backbone that helps us put together all of the aircraft. On the other side, on the ground, in terms of what's physically present, we have the Voloport. Now, in Q4 last year, we published the first functional, ready-to-use Vertiport handbook in a press release on our website. We welcome requests from partners, right? And we look forward to opportunities to deploying the Voloport all across the world, and of course, very specifically in South Korea. It has a fully functional design that accommodates both the VoloCity and the VoloConnect. It's modular, right? That's allow it to be built first, right, on a small plot of land or on top of most rooftop buildings. And over time, as the operation scales, the port can also be expanded for increased capacity. True to our values, it has a very small ecological footprint, right? We want to be sustainable throughout our whole value chain. And of course, it takes into considerations the ongoing regulatory development for vertiports all around the world. Right, so we welcome the opportunity to work with partners all over the world and also in Korea to develop and deploy Voloports everywhere. So moving on, we would like to outline what we can do with the products that I just introduced, right, to bring UAM to the Asia Pacific region. This is our eVTOL vision. And we start with Singapore. Right? When we flew for the very first time in Asia Pacific, it was at the very heart of Singapore, over the marina, right, which is, of course, the very heart of the central business district in Singapore. Less than a year later, we announced our commitment to launch our air taxi services in Singapore in December of 2020. And very much hot off the press, I'm very excited to announce that at the Singapore Air Show this week, we have published our roadmap for launching in Singapore. This is a detailed handbook that goes into the details of what we mean by launching UAM services in this city-state. And we, of course, outline the different benefits that it brings, the societal, environmental, economical, and political benefits. As the headline, we expect to generate 4.18 billion Singapore dollars in cumulative economic benefit and hire up to 1,300 jobs in Singapore by 2030 with the launch of UAM. We detail out the potential routes and use cases, really providing a grounded way of how we expand our operations. The initial launch that we see will be touristic routes, similar to the route that we took during the flight trial in the Marina Bay in 2019. We will also add touristic routes in the Sentosa Island. After our launch of touristic routes, we then expect to launch cross-border routes, flying from Singapore to neighboring islands and countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. We see also UAM as enabler to help the Singapore government achieve its Green Plan 2030 and act as an engine for economic growth, right, in the post-pandemic world. So, and last but not least, we see the UAM service as the next milestone that will allow Singapore to retain its position as the Sentosa Island. After our launch of touristic routes, we then expect to launch cross-border routes, flying from Singapore to neighboring islands and countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. We see also UAM as enabler to help the Singapore government achieve its Green Plan 2030 and act as an engine for economic growth, right, in the post-pandemic world. So, and last but not least, we see the UAM service as the next milestone that will allow Singapore to retain its position as one of the most innovative cities in the world. If we move on to China, we have now a picture here of Chengdu, which is where our joint venture with Geely is located. And on this slide here, you see the formation of the joint venture between Volocopter and Geely, right, to bring electric air taxis and heavy lift cargo drones to China's cities. This formation of the joint venture was accompanied with a pre-order of 150 vehicles of VoloCity, VoloDrone, and VoloConnect, which will help to serve the initial demand, the very initial demand that we expect to come from the joint venture in China. Once we have announced the joint venture, we've also displayed our aircraft actually at multiple locations at, of course, the Shanghai Auto Show, one of the largest auto shows in the world, and certainly in China. And we've also displayed our presence at the Zhuhai Air Show in October of last year. We believe that these two events and announcements, right, will pave the way for us to build out the outstanding partnership that we have with Geely. If I may move on then to Japan. Here we have two significant pieces in progress. The first is that we have worked with Japan Airlines, right, and signed an agreement to develop and launch air mobility services in Japan. More importantly, this includes a pre-order of 100 aircrafts by Japan Airlines, right, to, again, reserve the initial aircraft necessary for operations in Japan. We've also announced that we have joined the Osaka Roundtable, which, as part of the engagement, also committed ourselves to flying during the Osaka 2025 Expo. We believe that all of these pieces together, especially with Japan Airlines, will help us build the strategic partnerships that's necessary to launch UAM services in Japan. Let me quickly also mention Malaysia. So in 2021, we've also announced a joint feasibility study that is ongoing with Malaysian airports, Skyports, right, and ourselves to study the feasibility for vertiport deployment all over Malaysia, but starting with the Subang International Airport, which is the smaller airport closer to the center of KL, Kuala Lumpur, and is also happens to be the private jet hub of Malaysia. With our expertise in air taxi operations and air taxi design, as well as the joint expertise that Skyports has when it comes to vertiport design, we believe that we can add value to Malaysian airports to help them understand how a vertiport can add value to all of the airports that they have throughout Malaysia. Let me now move to Korea. I think we're very proud, as some of you know, to have flown twice in Korea. I will briefly show a video that many of you are probably there for, right, in terms of presence. The first is at Gimpo Airport, where our 2X aircraft flew. And you can just see here how stable and how smooth the flight actually is. A few days later, we also had the honor of flying in the Incheon airfield. And again, with this video, you're able to see the presence of our aircraft, right, and just how stable the aircraft was when it comes to maneuvering, right, as well as landing. Both of these aircrafts are manned, right, are crewed, right, so they have a pilot on board. And of course, we were able to obtain all of the necessary approvals and permissions necessary in order to fly at these two, at such proximity to two major international airports. Following the flight trial, we've also announced, right, our feasibility study with Kakao Mobility. When we look at the need for us to improve on the traffic conditions on the ground in Korea, we see Kakao Mobility as our key partner, right, to understand and then to market our service. The goals of the feasibility, as you see here, is really to try to identify the list of commercial routes, some of the operational capabilities, as well as the business models that are necessary for a UAM operator in South Korea. We expect, as announced previously, we expect for the findings to be released very soon, and we look forward to commercializing the service together by 2025. So let me close by saying, when we looking back, when we look at the flight trial that we did here in Singapore in 2019, we really saw that as the opening of our Asia Pacific office, but also our Asia Pacific market entry. We believe that the Korea flight trial that we did in November of 2021 also helps to serve as the market entry point for Volocopter in Korea. We have hired our first people on the ground in Korea, and we look to expand the team quickly. We are forming partnerships and consortiums to allow us to bring together all of the necessary expertise in order to launch the UAM service in Korea. And we expect to do so in alignment with the KUAM roadmap that MOLIT has published. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and thank you again for giving me the opportunity to present Volocopter to you today.